He has 2 minutes, but
So by the way, you guys can feel free to move up and be a little bit more intimate. We would love to. We would love to get to know all of you guys.
Yeah.
We expected like 5 people to come, so the fact that there's more than 5 people is like, oh
this
my
is
God.
true. Actually, these guys up front, like,
We're the only 5 that we thought were
yeah. So thank you all for coming.
Yeah.
This is like really exciting for us.
All right. So I think what we should do is we should start the panel,
Yeah.
and when Bern comes in, apparently when Bern comes in, we can make fun of him.
Yeah.
That's all right. We're going to do that anyways. So yeah. All right. Well, I'm going to continue the intro then. My name is Rainbow Plasma. You can also call me Max. I am the yellow one on the screen right there. I am the host and organizer of the podcast. I also used to do editing of the podcast as well. And again, I've been doing this for 3 years. So yeah.
And I am Flutterguy317, the creamy colored...
The other yellow horse.
Yeah, the other yellow one. By the way, we're sitting in the wrong direction, so
we're in the wrong direction.
Really sorry about that.
Yeah.
I am the media manager of the podcast, and I am one of the editors currently. And yeah, Bernd, who's not here, who's just arrived.
Bern's finally here! Hey! You're technically not late, but that doesn't mean that I don't hate you.
Get on up. Get on up
Get
here.
up here.
Wow, just in time. You're here.
Sit here.
Yeah.
Get your microphone all sorted. Hold on. You're technically not late.
Okay.
So I was just introducing ourselves. So why don't you introduce yourself?
I was going to set up my camera, but forget that.
No.
There's a camera right there.
There's actually people here, Bern. Can
I
you
know.
believe it?
Oh my God, my heart.
They're gonna be so disappointed.
It's beating so fast.
So who are you?
Who are you?
What do you do?
My name's Bernd, Bernd01. Little known fact, my real name is actually Bernd.
Yeah.
And I am a dank memer.
All right, that's all of Bern has today.
That's it, you're shut
Because
off.
he's leaving. What do you do on the podcast, man?
Yeah, thank you too, right
What
there.
do you do on the podcast?
I sometimes coordinate special guests, and then I talk a lot
Yes, you do.
about art, and I get really overly passionate about art and ramble about lots of things.
Yeah. So as I mentioned, we've all been doing this for about 3 years. We've been analyzing art each week on our show, kind of going over some of the deeper concepts in art, because I think a lot of the times in My Little Pony, the art fandom, obviously this fandom has a huge amount of really, really awesome art. But a lot of the times
we have
we
some
don't.
artists in the crowd here. Actually, who's an artist in the crowd? Raise your hands.
He's
Holy cow!
Oh,
that's
my.
Awesome.
See, that's awesome, and I feel like the fandom has that a lot. You guys are just a small percentage of all of the amazing artists that are out there, whether or not you're learning or experienced or otherwise. And so we've been doing this for a while, and can you pull up? Why don't we? Let's just
Real quick, to inflate my own ego, can I get a show of hands of how many people have seen our show and watched?
totally
a bunch
did
of
that.
it?
If you
Did
were
that
here on
already.
time.
I wasn't
You're
here
on
for it
time.
though.
No, you're right.
That's
You're
true.
right. Yeah.
We can officially start the panel now.
We
Oh, we can officially start the panel now. Woo!
Oh, hey.
Sure, we already did that. So.
Thank you.
All right. So
You
why don't?
unofficially started without me? How
Yeah,
dare you?
we did.
absolutely. I did.
Completely.
Yeah. So I think what we should do is we should spend the first kind of half of this panel just analyzing art and kind of showing you guys, what we normally do. For all of you who haven't seen our show before, we can talk a little bit more about the deeper concepts of certain art pieces and fun stuff like that. And then we'll open it up a little bit later. We'll talk a little bit more about doing a podcast in case any of you guys are curious about that. And then we'll open it up for Q&As. So get your questions ready.
Yeah,
So,
we
yeah.
felt like looking at art was a good place to start because we didn't really want to talk about ourselves for half an hour. We felt like that was, I don't know, too self-important.
It's true.
Well, I mean, for you.
not for me,
Yeah.
but just like our spirit of the show has kind of just been like analyzing art and looking at it and appreciating it, and like teaching people why you should appreciate what you're looking at and why it makes your head go, this looks magical.
Yeah,
So,
because so many people, right, like they start out and they look at an art piece and they say, I like this, right? And that's the first kind of point of connection between the viewer of art and the creator. That's their first kind of point of connection. But a lot of the times we kind of fail to look deeper and ask ourselves, like, why do I like this? Like, what about this do I really like? And especially for aspiring artists, how many artists out there who are currently training and like trying to get better? And like, there's so many of you out there that are probably, you guys
see
all want to learn
all
more,
of the
right?
artists' hands up because it's a continuous learning process.
Yeah.
Really.
And so, it's really important when you're learning how to create art, to understand why you like what you like, because otherwise, how are you supposed to kind of recreate that magic for everyone else? So why don't we roll into something?
Okay. Well, let's start with something that is quite famous in the fandom that you actually own.
It's true. Yeah, it's true.
So this is a piece by Cosmic Unicorn called Sunrise in Equestria.
Yeah.
And we're going to do this a little bit differently than one of our normal shows, where we're going to kind of focus on a concept and bring up different pieces as we go through that instead of just focusing on one piece.
And try to do it quickly, because we do 4 pieces in 1 hour.
Yeah,
yeah. Normally we
there's
do 4
a lot of
pieces.
pieces.
Like 30 on his screen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this piece was done by Cosmic Unicorn. It's a oil on canvas.
It's an artist from Seattle. Her name's Maria Montez, and she is a traditional artist and a digital artist. But this is an oil painting. It's about yay big, however that much is in inches. And it's actually hanging on my wall. And fun fact, I cried when I won this in auction, and she took a picture of me. Thank you, yeah.
I capture all those tears.
Yeah.
So I guess one of the first things that we kind of learned about on the show, because when we started the show, we had no idea what made art. But we kind of learned as our audience learned, because we would do the research and like kind of try and figure out what
You guys learned as I learned.
Yeah, actually we learned from you. But so one of the first concepts that we kind of touched on in our show is this kind of thought of atmospheric perspective, and that is kind of trying to show distance based on like what you can and cannot see. Like this fog in this piece kind of gives you a sense of distance, a sense of this 3D nature of this piece.
Yeah, it shows you how far it is. So like if you think, what makes something really, really far in the way? Well, like sky gets in the way, clouds get in the way. And so like this is a way to dramatize that by putting like a huge amount of fog and cloud to make like this is a really big mountain.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of the biggest mountains in the Alps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess like for a lot of different scenarios, like you have this either mist or fog or whatnot that like accumulates over distance, and this is something that can really dramatically improve art quality and like that people can use in their art to kind of show this perspective. It's one form of perspective, and when combined with other forms, it's kind of really intense.
There's many. Normally when people think of perspective, they think that little dot and like the things go towards it, but that's just one point perspective. But there's multiple forms in which to show things are bigger and smaller to you.
Here's another perspective piece.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, that's by Divinian, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So this is called the Golden Cage.
So we had a lot of debate over this at first.
Yes.
Because we were kind of learning. One of the things that we do on the show is none of us are formally art trained. We created the podcast because we wanted to learn more about art and share kind of our journey of learning with. And this was actually recently, and something again that we're kind of grasping with is like vanishing points and 3-point perspective, and perspective in general is a big and complicated beast. So I'm gonna let you talk about this one, Vern, because I still don't fully understand it.
So this whole thing of us like not having any formal training, I think I'm the person who has the most quote unquote formal training. My community college basic art classes, and so what really sparked my interest in making this a really educational show is I started going to my art classes, learning something cool, and then coming back to the show with what I learned, and then not shutting up about it, and just like spouting it out.
It's true.
One of the many things I learned is some of the finer parts of showing perspective. And in this piece, we started a big argument in it because we just highlighted this piece because it was pretty and painted really well. And then I was like, oh, there's this perspective going on here, this 2-point perspective. And then no one understood what the heck that meant.
Yeah.
So that sparked our perspective episode. We actually took this apart, and this is using actually 3-point perspective, technically. And so there's a point in which things vanish up in the sky, off the screen, another point where things vanish on the left side of the screen and also on the right side of the screen. And you can see that's how the walls points to it, but it's like way the thing.
Yeah.
So there's also a different piece in perspective, the other Divinian piece that you had.
Yes, I will find that and bring that up.
So this piece that we're about to show you, it's a really cool piece because what you can do is you can look at it and see how kind of the camera tilts, and it gives the impression that the buildings that you're looking at are so much bigger than what they appear on the screen. It gives a sense of scale. So a great example of like why this works is because you're placed so low to the ground, and the angle in which you're looking through the piece, almost like the window in which the art piece occupies. It's
another great example of just perspective in general, because it's using all forms now. So that atmospheric with the clouds that we talked about, like the sky is getting in the way of the castle. That's why it's all desaturated and gloomy. But there's also a good use of basic, like sort of one-point perspective, because the alleyway, you notice, is zooming in on one single spot. It looks like the alleyway is just kind of like disappearing in like the center.
Mm-hmm.
So.
By the way, before we go any further, has everyone here heard of the term perspective?
Yeah.
I'm assuming.
Good. So in our perspective episode, we actually touched on quite a few different forms of perspective, starting from like the very beginning of when perspective became a thing in art, to kind of something like this, where you can look at like the sidewalk, and the sidewalk is curved like you're looking through the lens of a camera, because camera lenses will naturally distort images at certain focal lengths. And it's like pieces like this, or if anyone has seen the Children of the Night animatic, that used something like that.
Yeah. Can we get a quick shout out for Jordan and Spirito, who couldn't join us for this convention, who made the Children of the Night animatic?
Yeah, like, they're really cool people.
Yeah, thank you. If they ever watch this, we love you.
I'm gonna force them to watch this because they moved within 5 minutes of my house. So I'm gonna like take it to them on like a
Come to
video
my house
cassette.
and we'll watch videos.
We'll take them on like a video cassette or something like that.
Yeah.
I know your hands are gonna get tired, but who here has seen that animation?
Children of the Night.
Children of the Night.
Everybody.
Oh yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
All right, I swear that's the last time we're gonna ask you to put up your hand. All right, everybody who hasn't put up their hand, put up your hand.
Quick show of hands of how many people are tired of raising their hand.
Yeah. So I think another concept in art that we often talk about and people are really, really interested in is the color in an art piece, right? And there's so many different ways that we can talk about color.
Bring up this one first.
We could talk about this one first, absolutely. There are just so many different concepts between, complementary colors and analogous colors and what happens when you use too much contrast or not enough contrast, or the saturation and what's your intent and everything like that. Like it's such a complicated thing that we can't obviously cram it into this one panel. But
every little thing in art has something awesome you can dive into. So like color theory is a very long college course. It's one of my favorite college courses. And so like self-plug, we have a color episode you can kind of go watch, which Spirit, Jordana, who we just shouted out, joined us on. We have the piece right there, if you want to click that.
This one?
Yeah, that was on that episode. Yeah, that we talked about warm and cool colors. So you have like blue and violet all the way to yellow and orange. So it's like a duality of color temperature. And like there's lots of stuff that goes into that.
Right, and she taught us a really good lesson too, which is the whole concept of warm light gives off cool shadows, and cool light gives off warm shadows.
So even lighting has its own temperatures and its own colors that it works with. So so like warm sun will make the cool shade under trees.
I'm not sure if you can see it. We literally don't actually have a display in front of us, so I'm looking at the back of that projector.
Sorry, I can try and shift.
Nah, it's fine. But I believe in this piece you can see, whichever pony that is, you can see that there's kind of cool shadows coming off, even though there's a warm light.
Yeah. If you look at like some really good art pieces, and you look like if they have clouds in them, you can see that like the clouds on the top would be orange or yellow, like really warm, and on the bottom it'll be purple. And you won't notice that at first. Your eye will like adjust it because it kind of looks natural. But if you study it closely, like you get this warm color on the top, cool color on the bottom, either purple or blue or whatever, and that kind of, it confuses your brain because your brain sees that and it says, oh, that's natural. That's what it's supposed to look like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there's another thing, Albert's Homage to the Squares. It's a fancy book. I hardly know anything about the book, but I know the name so I can sound smart. And it's basically this concept that he painted a bunch of squares, and it's that color affects the color around it. So it's impossible to see a cool color as cool if it's surrounded by like 90% of a very warm color. So colors will constantly affect the temperature of other things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's many times where you can look at an art piece that's, let's say, very, very warm like this one, and if you were to go in with like one of those color pickers with whatever program you want and like go and pick out a certain color, you might be surprised by what you see because the individual colors on there it's not that they don't matter, but they have a lot of context to them, right? So the stuff that's around them will completely change what it looks like to you. If you surround, let's say you have a blue pony, right? Like let's say Rainbow Dash. Purple pony?
Twilight.
All right.
Bam.
That one.
So if you take like
It's
a
a
purple
pretty
pony,
piece.
and purple's a fairly cool color, and you surround it by like yellows and reds and start warming up the piece in general, you'll notice that the pony itself will also look quite
Twilight
warm.
seems kind of warm, but if you look at the sky, that's violet. Now that we know the sky's dark, it makes
Yeah.
it seem cooler.
Yeah.
Does everyone know about the optical illusion with the color on two sides of a square with it surrounded by different colors?
You don't have to
It's kind of the
explain
Yeah.
same kind of concept where you have the same color, but it's surrounded by different colors, and they look completely different because your brain kind of processes the way that the colors interact with each other and like changes how you perceive the piece.
Yeah. It's not to say you have to make every single piece of art you make an optical illusion.
Yeah.
But it's cool to know. It's like, man, I'm going to make this picture and it's going to be super red.
Mhm.
But it's like, what color should I throw in there to make it look?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
So one of my favorite concepts in art, and it's fairly simple to understand, it's complementary colors. So colors that are on the color wheel that are opposite to each other really stand out and they pop. So why don't you pull up the rain gear one?
You're wearing a good example.
I am
His
wearing a good
lanyard is
example.
orange and
Oh,
his
yeah.
shirt is blue.
Well, I totally planned that.
Okay.
So this is an art piece that was actually made for us by a friend of ours called Rain Gear.
Rain Gear, I love you.
It's a fan art piece, and
I know.
Rejoice.
this is a great example of what we like to call blorange, which is blue and orange in a piece. Blue and orange seems to be, everybody loves blue and orange. I don't know what it is,
Oh
but
God,
Did we coin
things
that
are
term,
happening.
or did someone else come up with that?
we should probably like
I
trademark it or
love
something.
lights go out and then Staff's like, oh, should I like wave my arms around?
Moving, like,
It didn't work. Thanks. Thank you for our arm waving security. Or staff, sorry.
can we get like a wacky waving?
I thought you were doing that.
Thank you,
to,
staff
like-
runners.
Yeah.
I thought you were doing that to make the art look better.
Yeah. Like, oh, thank you.
Yeah.
So yeah, actually, this is a good point to bring up that like this was a piece made for us, like fan art, and we totally did not expect this kind of stuff to happen when we started this podcast.
Another thing we didn't expect is this entire front row.
I
Hi
know.
guys.
How about the entire people who actually came to this?
I
It's
know.
crazy.
Yeah. Like, we tried to invite every artist we knew, and like that's why, and like they're here, and I'm all giddy about it. Like this whole podcast that we've been doing for the past 3 years, like we've met so many people and so many artists that like I don't even know what to do with myself when I come to these conventions. 'Cause it's like, oh hi, oh hi, oh hi.
Yeah.
Like I know like all these people who are like, oh, like I know your name.
Well, yeah, and it's the same with this piece, right? Like we have a bunch of people online who will make these things, and the cool thing for me is, so we've met a lot of artists over the years, sort of either through interviews or other means, and we've kind of watched them grow. And Rain Gear is a perfect example of someone. You can obviously look at this piece, and it's got a lot of great stuff in it. Again, the concept of blorange was really good, and you can kind of see how it grows over time, and. Apparently, we have an influence on people because we're smart enough not that.
Right.
we sound
Including
like that right now.
this guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyone know Assassin Monkey?
Assassin Monkey, give him a big round of applause. Assassin Monkey, everybody. So it's really cool because Assassin Monkey is actually here, and he's from Holland. So we flew from Holland all the way here to BronyCon, and he's vending. Netherlands, excuse me. I'm a horrible person. Forgive me. But so Hollerlands, if you go into the artist alley, he's vending there. Go buy some prints from him.
Yeah,
but
you
like
should.
when he started, like the fan art he made from us, like
It was good, but
Yeah.
now that we see kind of what he's doing, stuff like this, where it's just like taking stuff to
when he first drew his
level.
fan art, he was learning, right?
Yes.
Like all of his art looked like he was like learning, and like it was sketchy.
Yeah.
And he's like, and he was talking about all these things. He's like practicing, and now like everyone in the artist alley goes up to him and he's like, "You're my influence." Like
So-
yesterday at that artist panel, like all the artists on the table were like, "I inspire to be you,"
Yeah.
and he's like,
Yeah.
"Whoa."
Yeah. So I wanted to mention in this piece, we just talked about complementary colors. So there's something you can take home. Complementary colors, which are opposite colors on the color wheel. So for example, like blue and orange. But we've also got stuff like analogous colors. Or monochromatic. So analogous colors are colors that are close to each other on the color wheel. So for example, like a blue and a purple or a blue and a green, those can be analogous colors. Whereas monochromatic piece, this one, I can't really see it too well. It looks very blue from back here.
Blue and purple.
It's blue and purple. So it's analogous, but it also looks very monochromatic because it's got kind of one hue. And I personally love these pieces with just one hue because you can really see that just because you're painting something in blue does not mean that it's going to be boring looking, right? There's so many different shades of view. All right.
View?
There's so many different shades of blue, and you can mess with different things, like, for example, oh God, I'm going to say it.
Saturation?
Saturation. Yeah, saturation. And value.
Value.
Yeah.
Oh God.
And everybody who doesn't watch our show just got confused.
Yeah. So value, for those who don't.
All right, let's talk about
it. to fill everyone in. When I was going through that phase of going to art classes and then learning magical things, I eventually learned this concept of value. Thank you. And it was the first like educational thing that I brought back to the show. I was like, I want to do an entire episode all on this one thing, and like laid out, probably had 80% of the audio and all the dialogue.
But what is value, Burned?
So value is I can't even think. It's the lights and darks of a piece, or of your work. So it's how many darks and how many lights, and like the range and contrast between those in any artwork. And it doesn't have to do so much with the color or the saturation or things like that. Saturation a little bit, but that's how much of the hue, so not to be confused.
Mm-hmm.
Or value is basically just like the lights and darks. So in this piece, all the black spots have a very dark value, but all the blue spots have a very, very light value. I don't think we have anything on there that's black and white or monochromatic.
This is probably something that's close to that, and it also shows how value can be used to kind of add perspective as well, or three-dimensionality, or at least changes in value. So you can see, like, in this piece, the front of the piece, like the frame around it is very dark. And then there's this very bright middle section, and then it gets darker, and then it gets lighter. And so you can use that kind of concept as a way to separate these layers, almost.
Well, it's a very similar concept to what we were talking about with the complementary colors, too, right? You put blue and orange, which is an opposite, next to each other, and they're going to pop. In the same way, value works like that as well. You know, if you take a light color and you put it next to a dark color, it's going to pop. And so you can see that near the bottom of the piece there, and you'll probably start noticing in a lot of different things. And so you'll also probably recognize these terms. If any of you use like Photoshop or Psy or any of the digital tools, you'll notice that you'll probably have like color sliders, and the color sliders are going to be either RGB or they'll be HSB.
Or HSL.
HSL. Yeah.
Or HSL.
The technical term is what HSL is hue,
saturation,
lightness, and lightness.
Yeah.
Lightness.
Yeah, and so another term for lightness is also value.
Yeah.
So yeah. But I'm not the meme. He's the meme. Yeah.
So I thought that we would bring up a fun piece at this point. Just
Also because we promised someone that we'd bring up a piece with Colgate.
Yeah. This is a awesome piece by Holivi.
Oh, we could talk about the emotional side of art.
Oh, we totally could.
That's my favorite
That's
part.
a good idea. Go ahead.
So I'm secretly a teenage girl at heart, and I love when a piece gets me emotional. You know, it doesn't even necessarily need to be well made, although obviously artistically this is also well made. When looking at art, you also can consider kind of the emotional impact that it's going to have on the people who are viewing it, right? So this is adorable and hilarious, right? So like that is definitely something to consider when you're making art pieces. How is this art piece going to make people feel? How is this going to kind of affect your audience? Because I'm sure a lot of you out there who have had art pieces that have inspired you to become artists, you know, it was an emotional impact for you. And for me personally, I'm really big into facial expressions. That's my thing. I love them. And this is obviously a crazy goofy one where the eyes are way popped out and the mouth is tiny, so that's adorable.
What you doing?
You brushing your teeth?
Brushing your teeth?
Is that a brush?
So yeah, that's another thing to consider when doing art as well, is definitely the emotional impact too. And I think that is really important, and nobody ever talks about that. They talk about, well, what we've talked about already, which is like actual technical art stuff, but there's also an emotional side to it. There's a sensitive side to art.
Pick that one.
Okay.
Yes.
So it also has, this is the one I like, this is the one that's up Burns' alley, But this is another piece by a Sass Monkey.
Which he's selling actually right now, because he finally got his prints
Shout
in.
out. But this has the same kind of effect, that emotional, like rousing, but it's in a different manner. So instead of being like, I don't know, sad or like other kinds of emotions or funny, it has more emotions of like, how would you say, nobleness, I guess, or heroicness.
Yeah.
And so it has a lot of things behind this, even like historically based, like a kind of like the light of God behind the character shining on the army as they charge forth, things like that, that he utilizes to paint this cool dreamscape that he does.
And you can see, like, if you go to an art museum, like a non-pony art museum, I know it's strange looking at non-pony stuff.
Yeah.
But I know, right? But you can kind of see like concepts used in those pieces in a lot of the pony artists' pieces, because throughout history, artists have been kind of taking these concepts, refining them, and then passing them on to future generations of artists. And so Sass Monkey is one of the best examples, I think, of this, because he has so many pieces that use so many different concepts that he's kind of...
Yeah, like utilizing them in his art, like they were done in like art history. So something cool about a Sass Monkey is he's utilizing more of those concepts. I tried to get him to doodle me an Applejack with a pencil, and he refused because he has banned himself from drawing anything traditionally, because he's taking after the old art masters, but he will do nothing but his own medium, which is digital. So he wouldn't even draw me a traditional piece.
Can you do that?
He's so
For you,
obsessed
Vern?
with like his digital medium. I don't know. I might just like hold his hand and be like,
It's the Sass Monkey original.
yeah.
It's either a pony or like a grapefruit.
But on that joke of like, oh, there's no non-pony art, isn't it like an amazing thing we can talk about all these amazing concepts and like share them with you through pony art at a pony convention?
Yeah,
Like
and
that's something in itself right there.
Yeah, and the fact that there's just so many good art pieces. Like I mentioned, we've been doing this for 3 years now, so that's over 150 episodes because we do it once per week.
Mm-hmm.
And each episode we feature about, on average, I'd say 3, counting the episodes where we don't feature certain art pieces.
Yep.
So like that's already like over 450 different art pieces in this fandom that we consider like spectacular. And there's just more out there all the time. You know, I walk around these vendor halls and it's just like
It's like
amazing.
a small chip on the block.
Yeah, exactly. It's really incredible.
To prepare for this panel, I had to go through all of those art pieces and try and
He
pick
did.
pieces that I like.
Our favorites.
Yeah.
I think everything that we're showing today we featured on the show.
Yeah, for the most part.
Yeah.
So let's
What's
take a look
next?
at this piece.
Hey.
Kind of go back
Good
into the
idea.
whole color thing. This is kind of interesting
It's one
because
of Vern's favorite artists.
it uses like really weird colors that you wouldn't normally expect to see. Like if you look at the shading on her, it's like this purpley, like peachy color, which you normally wouldn't expect to see. And a lot of the times, like we tell new artists to like, you know, use desaturated colors, like don't kind of like
Don't oversaturate your OCs.
Yeah.
One of the
But-
primary mistakes that early artists do is they oversaturate their art. So they take that saturation slider and they just put it up all the way. So like
I don't need to adjust this, right? You can just stay at the right
like,
side.
Like
just where it is.
anything that's blue is like really, really blue, and like anything that's red is
It's
like,
like,
really, really red.
Oh my God, my eyes are bleeding red.
Yeah, like you've all seen pictures like on your screens that are just like it hurts to look at, right? So, but that's why this piece is so interesting, right? Because if you were to look at these like colors individually, they kind of hurt your eyes, don't they? But when you add them all together and when you include again the emotional side of it as well, you know it's supposed to be crazy. It's supposed to make you feel like that, and that's a really cool kind of effect that you get by combining the colors and the pose and everything like that.
So we did something really weird on our show.
We always do something weird.
I know. we had an OC episode where we discussed
Yeah, who would do that?
Yeah, I know, right?
Spawned an entire podcast.
Sorry. Well,
where we discussed what makes a good OC. And then we had the next week later we had an episode where we went over some good OCs. And in the first episode we talked about how you should not use overly saturated colors, like choose a good color scheme, et cetera, et cetera. And in the next one we featured a lot of art that had really saturated OCs. But the difference is that you have to choose colors that go well together if you want to make these super saturated ponies. And like this piece, these colors go really well together. And you can even use that to kind of make your art pop, but you have to use it well.
Yeah,
It's-
you can tell that there was a lot of thought put into this. That the purpose of this art piece was supposed to stand out. It was supposed to make you look at it and kind of almost recoil. Like, whoa, that's crazy. And again, I was mentioning the pose. Even the pose kind of matches that. Lyra is kind of like reaching back, and her hoof is crazy, and there's obviously a lot of motion in that piece.
Look how far my spine can bend.
Yeah. and so the colors match the pose, it matches the expression, and so all of that gives you this kind of response when you look at it, and that's what we mean when we say it's very thought out, it's very well planned.
Mm-hmm.
So we do have to move on to some other stuff because we want to leave plenty of time for Q&As if you guys have them. So what I thought we would talk about is we talk a little bit about specifically critiquing art, because we've been doing this now for 3 years, so we're kind of hotshots.
I'm a big deal.
Yeah, and so I wanted to talk a little bit about critiquing art in general, because I see a lot of art, or a lot of people on the internet look at art and try to give it critiques, and I'm just not feeling it. And there's a couple of things that I've
real
kind
quick,
of noticed.
it's a pet peeve of mine where DeviantArt has a critique section. It's a big pet peeve where it'll be someone makes a critique and it's like, oh my god, I love your art, it's so pretty, 5 stars.
Yeah.
And then the rest of the text is just like asterisk, asterisk, asterisk.
Yeah, like heart.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Smiley face, smiley face.
like a critique, I think there's two things. A critique, someone either does that, or they treat a critique like that gives them a free pass to just look at someone's art and point out all the bad things and then walk away and be like, bye. like this sucks, this sucks, you're welcome.
And you should feel bad.
Yeah. So what we do on our show, for those of you who haven't watched, is we try to bring up the positive aspects of a piece and kind of work with people's strengths. So I think when people go out and they critique art, they should really, and this honestly goes for anything, you're going to catch more flies with honey than you will with vinegar.
Which is actually false, but we'll move on.
But it's a saying, so it can't be false. What we do is we like to, sometimes, we try to stray a little bit away from heavy critique in the show because we want to feature great art and get it out to more people. But we do give the occasional critique. But if we do, it's really important that you start out with what you did well, because if you don't start out with what you did well, then you're not going to remember that, right? If you walk up to an artist and say, the first thing that you say about the art piece is really what they're going to remember. So if you start out with, hey, I love the mane in this piece and your colors are so good, but I'm kind of curious about this anatomy, it looks a bit kind of off,
That
that
sounds way different than going man, your mane really sucks, but the colors are nice.
Yeah, exactly. It's a completely different thing. So yeah, I think when it comes to critiquing art, you have to give both sides to it, and you can't use it as a free pass to just,
Yes. In college, even my professors, they would say always try to find something positive, something you enjoy, something you and the person you're critiquing can actually attach to and appreciate.
Honestly, I think you are a bad critic, or you will give a bad critique if you can't find at least one good thing and one bad thing about an art piece. Every single art piece has one good thing and one bad thing. The best art piece that you can think of, there's something bad about it. And something that you drew when you were 3 years old, there's something good about it.
Because you have to remember the term is critique. It is positive criticism or positive feedback. You are there to offer a suggestion on what the artist could work on or improve on, or an aspect they could look to or study. You're not there to tell them what you think is bad. That's not how you critique something. My professor would shut you up if you said, I think this is bad and this is bad. He'd be like, that doesn't help. Yeah. You're bad. It's my professor. He could do that.
And this kind of applies too. If you're an artist and you look at other people's art, which I strongly recommend, we all strongly recommend, which is actually why we started to do this show, so that artists who are aspiring can take a look at the art that we feature, can go out and find other art that they really enjoy, and learn things from that. And I think if you're an artist and you go into a piece looking for the bad things in the piece, then it's not really going to help you advance as an artist. But if you go in and you pick out things that are really strong about that piece, wow, the colors in this piece are awesome, or wow, the perspective in this piece is really good, that's something that you carry with you into your own art.
You'll notice that if you go into the artist alley and you go up to an artist and you be like, man, one of my favorite things about your work is blank, and you put what your favorite thing is about their work, they'll usually do one of these. Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what you were saying, Ted, is you're not gonna learn if you only focus on the negatives either.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But on the flip side of that, it also is to say like endless praise doesn't help anyone either.
True. Yeah, it's all about balance.
Like telling someone, "Oh my gosh, your work is so fabulous. You're the best. Draw my OC." That's not going to help them improve.
I knew you'd slip that in at some point.
You thought wants to draw my OC, just hit me after the panel.
Yeah. We thought about slipping that into the description, but decided.
I noticed you took it out.
We took it out.
I know
they took it out for us.
Yeah. Oh, they took it out for us. We think you're being you're being too jokey.
You're being too forward.
So we're gonna take this. We're gonna take this out.
Speaking of jokey, there's this piece.
A Lamau. Thank you very much.
So that's Berndini the Wizard.
Yeah. In case you're not informed, this is my OC.
Except if he was Gandalf.
Yeah.
And
so
a wizard.
Again, Assassin Monkey drew this, the artist that we've been talking about earlier. Because I'm apparently the wizard of art.
So
thank you.
Again, to kind of go back to Assassin Monkey, and there's another artist who I can pull up here. This is Jowie Bean, who's actually in the vendor hall
Jowie Bean's in the vendor
downstairs.
hall as well.
These are artists who started out watching our show, and at the same time we watched them as artists. And I mean, it's kind of a bit egotistical of us, but I'd like to think that maybe through watching our show, it inspired them a little bit to go out and look at more art and kind of improve their own art. And at the same time, us seeing their improvement kind of spurred us on to keep doing this.
It's nice to think that, it's nice to think that we actually had an impact and helped people, and it feels really great when people come to us and tell us that. And so Jowie Bean started his DeviantArt doodling cartoons and ponies, and then now he's doodling professionally, and he's now
cartoons and
doing
ponies.
professional illustrator stuff. He's from the UK, and now he's here vending, and he's doing really well.
Well, I mean, art's a community. It really is, right? We as non-artists or amateur artists, we don't really have this big place to come in and tell everyone how to do things, right? But we've been welcomed and we've had the opportunity to learn as well. So, I think it's really important for artists to also go out, make friends in the artist community, and kind of help each other and share knowledge with each other too. That's kind of what we made our show all about. It's supposed to be kind of a knowledge sharing process where we can learn certain things and share it with you, and then you can come back to us and say hey, we learned this about art, and do you want to talk about that?
Of course, sometimes we do butt heads, and sometimes it kind of feels like this, which is a piece by someone who's actually here in the audience, Secret Pony.
Hey.
Oh yeah, you're Secret Pony. I totally forgot about that.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I know you from the internet.
So, so something that Bern likes to do is ramble a lot when he gets caught up on a subject of art.
Where are you going with this? Where are you going with this?
Well, I was going to say that you had the question marks to move on with time and stuff.
Oh, yeah. So we have a questions section coming up. So I would just, out of curiosity, we can keep talking or we can take questions.
You're going to make people raise their hands.
I'm going to make people raise their hands
one more time.
So how many people, just an estimate, how many people have questions about art or art critique or anything like that?
They'd like to ask.
All right,
I swear I know things.
All right, we got a couple
You
people.
do. Yeah, you do.
All right, so we got a couple people, so that's fine. So what we're going to do is we're going to continue talking about art then, and then we can get to the questions in about 10 minutes. How does that sound?
Look on
That
microphone.
sounds good.
So fancy.
We'll set up that microphone. Don't go up yet.
That's really fancy.
Don't go up yet, but we will.
I did want to go into this piece here.
Yeah.
It's a Fluttershy piece.
Oh, this is a great example of using abstract canvases. So a lot of the times when you look at a piece, you can see kind of when you look at it on let's say DeviantArt or Tumblr, it comes in this shaped box. That's the width and the height of the canvas. But something else that's really cool that you can do in art is you can play with this canvas. And yes, every art piece is going to have that box, but you can also kind of make your own box within it, and you can change how the art piece is interpreted. So here, you can obviously see that this artist has kind of carved out a little piece of the world, and the rest of it is blank here. And I think personally it gives off a sense of loneliness. There's a lot of blank space around Fluttershy, and again that impacts you, and it changes how you feel about the piece, as opposed to imagining this in a fully fleshed out forest.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be the same impact.
There's a couple other concepts that this does really well, and one of those is narrative. And narrative is just what's the story in the piece? What's going on? And so there's wind in this piece. There's two characters looking at each other, and so there's a little story besides just I'm gonna draw Fluttershy being cute, and I'm just gonna draw her here and her hair's down.
Not to say that there's anything wrong with that.
No.
Yeah.
Draw
But
cute Fluttershy as, you know.
you can add things onto that, like put Fluttershy in some wind,
Yeah.
and so on and so forth. And so like there's little things showing around that there's wind blowing and stuff like that.
Something that we also brought up with this piece when we originally brought it up on the show is that adding that little piece of ground on it, like that Fluttershy sitting on, kind of turns it into a bit more of a piece, like where she's actually grounded on something. It kind of turns it into something more tangible. So instead of it just being Fluttershy like out in space,
Floating in space.
yeah, there's something that she's sitting on. It kind of makes it a little bit more relatable.
So, like you said, it grounds Fluttershy and it grounds her to existing. So if you just draw Fluttershy and she's floating, we see it just as Fluttershy. Like the viewer sees, like, oh, that is just Fluttershy. But when you show Fluttershy sitting on something, now you're showing that Fluttershy is existing in some world,
Yeah, there's also another concept when it comes to these kind of abstract canvases. Abstract is totally the wrong word, so don't quote me on that.
But watch our last episode for abstract.
but there's other canvas choices where, for example, what will happen is the artist will use transparency. So in Photoshop, you can make the background transparent, so you can just have a pony that can be put anywhere. But what artists will do is they will carve their own kind of canvas. So we don't have an example of it here, I don't think.
No.
But there was one art piece I remember looking at that was like, it was like Applejack plowing snow. She had a shovel in her mouth and she was plowing snow. And it was transparent except for this circle. And this circle was almost like a little hole into the world. And that was really cool because the snow is actually coming out of the circle and into this transparent space. So it was like it was breaking the bounds of the canvas. And that's a really cool concept to work with because you're not always bound by, just make a square piece and then draw all over it. You can make your own kind of canvas within it and play with that as well.
Kind of like that whole thought of think outside
You can do
outside
it.
of the box.
Yeah,
There we go.
absolutely.
Something that we didn't have.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Someone's been studying.
Good job.
Something that we didn't have time to kind of cover, and we do have to move on to the question section, is this kind of concept of focus of the piece. And I think,
Where you look.
yeah, where you look, and also kind of to make parts of the piece interesting. Because that's kind of like what art is it's something that's interesting that you want people to see and you want people to like react to or just like enjoy. So like if you draw a piece that's kind of doesn't have like a good focal point or doesn't have something that, covers those topics or bases.
We can talk about it. We got time.
Yeah. Well, I want to just you brought up a great point, which is thinking about like where do you look in a piece when you first see it. What I want everyone to do when they go home today is I want them to take a look at an art piece that they really like, or maybe it's a new one when you're just checking out your DeviantArt messages or whatever. Pay attention to where your eyes go when you first see a piece. Like, what's the first thing you look at? And then afterwards, what happens with your eyes, right? Mm-hmm. And this is a really important thing when you're also making your own art, because you need to consider, what are people going to look at when they first see your art piece, and what are they going to look at when they stare at your art piece for a long time? And what you'll notice is a lot of great art pieces will draw your focus into a certain place using, a number of different techniques, whether or not it be a contrast in value, contrast in hues. And whether or not it be a contrast in value or hue or anything like that, there's going to be something that'll draw you into that place. And there's a couple of pieces. Does the Timberwolf one have a phone?
I don't think so.
No. Here.
Well,
we have
Timberwolf.
Let's
All
talk
right.
about this
Okay,
piece
over
really
that one.
quickly.
Sure.
The mountain and like there's this valley behind Applejack, which kind of draws your eye right into her as kind of the subject of the piece.
That and she's in the foreground because she's in shadow, and so that separation of layers and depth, and the fact that she's much, much darker. Contrast is the word I'm looking for. The fact she contrasts everything else makes you look there, because it stands out sharply.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, oop.
Yeah.
You killed it.
All right, I killed it. There we go.
All right.
Click that one. I was gonna say, so when you look at this piece, where does everyone's eye go? Just like someone shout out, "Hey, thank you!" And it does that in a couple ways. And one, shut your mouth. So it does that in a couple ways, and one of which is lighting. So she's illuminated. She's quite literally spotlighted. You'll notice that the area around her is lighter. She is lighter. She is brighter. She's the most white thing in the piece, with maybe the exception of the sky. I can't really see because it's to the side. But yeah, like there's light coming down through the trees, like hitting her, like she's on a stage. And so AJVL has used that as a strategy to make you look at her.
Mm-hmm. There are many pieces that I look at that take me on almost like a journey. And what you'll do is you'll start looking at a point in the piece, right? The artist will focus you down into a point of the piece, and then you can almost follow where your eye goes, and it's a very kind of calculated move by the artist. Oftentimes, especially with ponies, you'll see this with like tails or manes, because they're often quite curved. So you'll start by like, oh, the brightest point is like, let's say the tip of the tail, and then you'll follow the tail, and all of a sudden there's a pony there. And there are many different ways that you can kind of manipulate your piece in order to do cool things like that.
Mm-hmm. All right, so I think we should move on to the questions, because I think we have about 15 minutes.
Sure.
The Q-Nuts.
Q-Nuts, yes.
Yeah, so we've got about 15 minutes left, so I wanted to leave some time for any questions. If you guys have any questions about art or about us or about...
Yeah, any questions are open. Feel free to come up to the mic right now.
Feel free to walk
if you
up.
want.
Oh, by the way, we have prizes
Yes,
and stuff.
we do.
So if you ask a good question, then you might get a prize.
Yeah. So yeah, questions.
And suddenly everybody
And
has
everyone's
questions.
up, yeah.
So about those prizes, real quick, did you guys describe them yet?
We have not talked about the prizes yet.
So through some of the great friends and artists who we've met and become friends with through this whole experience, they've offered to give commissions to some people that ask really, really good, thought-provoking questions, not silly ones. I'll draw you something for silly ones. But yeah, so it's been very, very kind of them.
So yeah, what we're gonna do is, can you like write down their names somewhere, or I'll do it on my phone, I guess.
Yeah, if you can do that.
So what I'm gonna do.
Or stay after the panel.
Yeah. If you ask a question, I'm going to write down your name, and then we're going to kind of raffle off some of the prizes that we have.
Or just stick around after the panel, make it quick. Let's go.
Okay,
Snappy
cool.
snip.
All right. So feel free to go ahead. Tell us your name.
My name's David,
Hi, David.
and I know that earlier in your podcast you went through all the characters. With each show you featured one character.
Yeah.
I was wondering if you're going to pick that up again with some of the new characters that came out.
Ooh.
Yeah, so leading up to episode 100, which was a year ago, we decided to take a look at each of the main 6 in order and pick out a couple of pieces from that. We used to do themes on our show, and that was a way for us to kind of focus our energies on one particular section of art, because there's so much pony art out there, it was so hard to just pick and choose some. Now that we've been doing this for a while, we start running low.
We ran out of themes.
We ran out of themes, basically, including ponies. So we have episodes on like Colgate.
The
and
themes started getting weird or funny, and then we're just like, forget it. We'll just name the episode "Sniffing Germans," and we'll pick whatever.
That's real.
Yeah, it is real.
That's an episode. So I think we would make an episode about a character if we felt like there was enough art to kind of justify it. I think for some of the newer characters, so maybe some of the Equestria girls, or who's the one from season 5, Starlight Glimmer?
Yeah.
Yeah, so like maybe for her we might pick out an
Double
episode for
Diamond.
that. But usually I feel like nowadays we don't really focus too much on the
Because
themes.
it's
More
hard.
so
Like,
about what
let's
we like.
do Lyra, but there's like 650,502 Lyras that are amazing, and we want to feature them all.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, if it's all like, oh, we have 4 Lyra pieces, bam.
So you can send us, if you think this is a character that you think we should feature and you've got a bunch of cool art, you can feel free to send us an email. And
Yeah,
if
do it.
you do our work for
Here,
us, then we'll do an
just for
episode.
you, since you're here at our panel that you come to, what is your favorite character
My favorite character is
that we
Remy.
haven't featured yet?
Oh, that you haven't featured yet. I'm not sure.
All right. Well,
easy
you-
answering questions, is
Yeah,
it?
it's like I was gonna do an episode on your choice, you Mr. Chance.
Here, come
How
up
about
with-
favorite background character? Double Diamond. Say Double Diamond. Say Double Diamond. The pressure. All right. How about get back to us after the show?
Yeah,
We'll do an
or
episode.
email
for you.
us or something. We'll do an
Cool.
episode on it.
Thanks so much, man.
Thank you.
Thanks.
You.
Yes.
Hello.
All right, the real question here
I
is,
don't like you.
Oh, you don't like me?
What's your
you
name?
wanna
You gotta
go?
tell us your
Wanna
name.
go?
This
Oh,
is
what's my name?
this is one of our professional memers.
My name is Mummified Thunderbirds.
Yeah, you're a jerk.
What's
Hate
your
this guy.
question,
Go
Mama?
on his
Oh,
DVRA.
oh.
Hate Mummified.
For the example arts you had up here,
Yes.
how hard was it not to have burned bring up fireflies?
So okay, I can answer this. The answer is Bern didn't do the slides.
They actually didn't even tell me there was slides.
In fact,
Because you kept running away.
In fact, Bern just showed up 2 minutes late today. Sat here.
He was 2 minutes
talked
early.
about art. That's it.
Yeah.
I grabbed my camera that I didn't use.
So there's an art piece made by Blitz Pony. You might have heard of Blitz Pony. She's a
Oh,
very
Blitz
talented
Pony.
artist, and it's a wonderful piece that Bern loves. But no, we couldn't feature it.
Can we
I
Google
think we forgot.
fireflies real quick?
I don't have internet access.
Oh, wait.
I'm sorry.
Right.
Got a line of people burned. There's so many people asking us questions
Fireflies on my phone that I can't look
that no one will be able to see.
No. Thank you for your question.
Thank you for your question.
Do a sound
Background
flash
covered by
episode.
apps, but it's a thing.
Oh yeah, that's so cool, Bern. Everybody can see it.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Next
Hey there.
question.
Next question.
Hello, I'm Adam.
Adam.
I was wondering, what was the process you go through to making the art, and what program you use?
Okay.
yeah.
So I find the most common programs used are Photoshop, and I'm personally a
Tool
big
Sci.
fan of Inktool Sci. So yeah, that's the programs.
Ponyscape.
If you're interested in vector art in particular, there's a lot of cool vector art out there. You can use Illustrator or Ponyscape.
So I have opinions.
Inkscape.
I have opinions on art programs.
Oh, word.
Ponyscape, Inkscape, and Illustrator you use for vectoring. Vectors are cool.
Okay.
We used to teach those. But if you're doing digital art, like Paint Tool Sci and Manga Studio are both real good, affordable ones. Like sometimes Manga Studio goes on sale for like $30. And like those programs were made for actually illustrating something with like a pen and tablet, where Photoshop is a photo manipulation tool
That is also being used for.
that's insanely expensive
It's true.
if you don't get it for free. And it's an insanely powerful program, and you can do anything in it. But that being said, it's not made for illustration, so it's really, really hard to learn. But Paint Tool Sci and Manga Studio are like big recommendations, and almost anything you see online that's digitally painted is probably one of those,
Yeah.
or Photoshop.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Jaden.
Hello.
Hi.
What's your name?
My name's Jade.
Nobody can
Can't
hear
hear
you.
Go
My
tap it
name
on the
is
mic.
Samantha or Jada Jinx.
Hello.
Hi.
What's your question?
So I know a lot of people who, when they're showing me their art, they're just like, "This is my art, but it's not really good. I don't really like it," and they start putting themselves down. You know what I'm saying?
It's a very common thing.
So what do you tell them? Because I keep telling them, don't do that. You should never put yourself down.
Answer the question.
Yes, you can.
Yes. Go
Okay,
ahead.
so one of my art professors, what he would say is, never, ever talk about your own art or start a critique saying your art sucks or you don't like your art. Because like, as soon as you say like, I don't think it's very good, or man, like I hated this piece or I hated working on it, you instantly put that into the person's head. And so he was like, don't say that when you start a critique, or don't say that when you bring it up to show someone, because they're like, yeah, now I think that too, your art does suck. It's like, don't come up to someone and say that your art is bad, because, and my teacher would say like, don't come up to me and say that your stuff's bad or you don't like it. Like, that's my job, I'll tell you that it's bad. Like, go up to someone and be like, hey, like I made this and I'm learning. Like, say that, say you're aspiring and you're looking to learn. Don't say that your art's bad, say that your art hasn't gotten to where you want it to be yet. And like, that's just a train of thought. Like, that's where you should keep your head. Like, you should, even if you think your art sucks, like that's too bad, you should think your art isn't where you want it to be, and like you're learning, and so you're going to someone awesome like Jinx here, and you're like what do you think? Like, what could I work on? Or like, you're a big influence to me, and I like blank, like we talked about earlier.
And if someone comes up to you and does that, you know, find like points in their piece that are really good and point that out to them, and I don't know, kind of like encourage them a little bit to kind of keep working on those points and also on other points or aspects of their piece.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Love your show.
Thanks.
Thank
Just
you.
as an FYI to everybody who's in line, if you'd like to come talk to us afterwards, we'll also put you in the raffle, so it's not just people who get questions. But feel free to come to us.
We have a lot of prizes.
Yeah.
Hello, my name is Gabriel, or Gabe as my family would call me, but want to know, well, this is not related to art, but more related to MLP in general. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Sure. It's like, is there an episode that you guys hated at first, but grew to love as time went on, or has it been the other way around?
Oh.
There's a pony that, well, and I didn't really hate at first, but Verity's grown on me a lot. She's like probably my second favorite now.
Yeah.
Already sucked. She hasn't sucked before.
Now she's awesome.
I was thought like, Spike used to suck, but he still sucks.
Oh, don't
Just
tell Kathy
kidding.
that.
I'm so sorry. No.
So There's an infamous episode which is Mysterious Mare-de-Well that nobody really likes.
Yeah.
And at first I hated that episode, and now I'm just kind of meh about it. So,
So that's an increase, right?
yeah, it's an increase.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I'd agree. I had a character that I didn't really like. I didn't really like Rarity at first because I couldn't really relate to her. And it's not that she was bad in the first season. I just wasn't at the right like mental space to appreciate her character yet. But now I am. So hopefully that helps answer your question.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks for the question, bud.
Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Lillian, and I was wondering on how you feel about referencing versus copying art.
Ooh,
That's a great question.
First off, I like your cosplay.
Yes.
Great
It's
cosplay.
very pretty.
So referencing art is something that we encourage everyone to do because that is how artists learn. Thank you guys in the back.
Yeah. From another very influential person in the fandom, V. Rastaper,
Yeah.
one of his golden rules that he would always say in the My Little Pony Drawing School is references are magic. Quite literally. If you are going to like look at anything that you don't know how to draw or and you say, I don't know how to do this, go find what it looks like and then try to imitate
If you want to draw a landscape, you
Go
don't
look
just
at the
like
landscapes.
close your eyes,
Yeah.
imagine what it looks like in your head. You go outside, you look at the world, you study it, you like look at blades of grass and see how the light bends through it and stuff, and then
Like,
you can draw
yeah.
it.
Usually just trying to
So-
pull stuff out of your head and then drawing it on paper is like you might as well just kind of close your eyes and then
Yeah.
see how well that turns out for you.
But I mean, I understand what you're talking about. You're
Yeah.
probably talking about like tracing and things like that.
Yeah.
So tracing, I have a love-hate relationship with tracing because I think tracing is perfectly fine so long as it's used like
As a
as a
learning
tool
tool.
to
Yeah.
learn, right?
And then you don't go, I made this.
Yes, exactly. So like I would,
That's
as
the struggle.
as an aspiring artist, I would trace but then you post it somewhere and you own up to it and you say, yeah, I trace this, I'm learning all this kind of stuff. I think that's a completely legitimate way. Maybe don't try to sell it at the con.
Shots fired.
That wasn't actually anything specific, but now that I think about it, that'll make someone feel bad, and I didn't mean to.
Burning bridges at the Cutie Art Crusaders.
But yes, I think it's perfectly fine. I think people are a bit sore on it because some people have had their art stolen, and that's not a very pretty thing.
That sucks.
But I think if you're learning, then I think that's totally fine, so long as you own up to it and you're very open and say like, I'm just learning.
Yeah, like I agree with Max. Like tracing is cool and okay if you're looking to learn, but you don't learn much from tracing, so I recommend
true.
you don't do it. You learn more from having something like next to your piece or like on a picture, and then you like kind of copy from it or take inspiration from it. And there's also the concept of like taking inspiration from something. So like you look at a piece and you're like, what inspires me or what do I like about this? And then you copy little aspects of about it. But it's just like, don't trace someone's exact thing and then say that it's yours. Yeah, it's a great
Sorry,
way to
I know
learn.
we have a really long line, but just
That's just a really good question.
Yeah.
We can talk to you more about it after too.
Yeah.
Like,
Thank you.
So we were going to do something really quick here. We're going to get to your question.
Yeah.
I guarantee we can get to your question. But what I wanted to just do really quick is there's a person on our podcast who you probably saw in our picture who couldn't be here today. He's from Australia. He's the Australia part of our podcast.
He's the token Australian.
And we don't have we were going to try to call him on Skype, but that's just not working out. So what I would really appreciate is if you guys could all say hi, Joel, and give him a cheer into the camera, so that we could show it off to him. But we're gonna do that in just a minute after we finish our questions. So if you guys could do that when we talk about it, then that'd be great.
Yeah.
what's your question, buddy?
Anyways,
Go ahead.
My name is Ryan, and what's your favorite piece of art?
Oh.
Fireflies! Fireflies! There's a piece by Blixit, the girl from the UK, who we were talking about earlier, and it's called Fireflies with Luna, and I think it's really pretty. If you come up to me after the show, I'll write it down for you.
There's so many art pieces that I don't even know. I don't think I can answer that.
This is my favorite piece right now.
Thank you if you did that for me. I love you. Thanks, little man.
This is actually the back on my phone. This is by AJBL again, who's a fantastic artist. And it's the friendship throughout the ages. It's a Fluttershy, and it's really adorable. Sound of Music style. Really cute.
Anyways, thank you for your question.
Yeah, thank you.
So,
My name is Lynn. I work primarily in colored pencil, and I'm finding that the online art community really seems to be where it's at as far as getting your work noticed, but it's also almost entirely digital art. What would you guys suggest as somebody who works more traditionally to get noticed online?
so there's definitely, that's definitely true. Traditional arts kind of has like a love and hate relationship on the internet because there's a lot of traditional art that is like just people just like, I don't care about it as much because it's not as vibrant. It's not made for your monitor, right? And that's how everyone sees everything these days. Is it's for a monitor. But what I recommend is like, there's some amazing dudes out there. Not I was gonna say not Captain Pudge Muffin, but Captain Pudge Muffin's amazing. I would never say that. I love you, buddy. But there's another guy. He's like Muffin something or other, and he did this piece with Lyra, like being like touching a human hand. Get it? Because memes. But he did it traditionally in watercolor, but then he scanned it in Photoshop and he made the colors as bright as they would be on your monitor. And he's really popular. And so like, there's ways in which you can scan like a colored pencil piece,
Yeah.
as we said, and then you can make it look just as good on someone's monitor. So it's like, art is how people see it. So it's like, you have to make sure that people see it on their monitor in a way that they still appreciate.
Yeah. Getting a good scanner is
as if
a great
they
way
would
of
see
doing
it. Like
A good scan, and also like, don't be afraid to like import it into Photoshop and like tweak the colors a bit too.
Yeah.
Because like I know scanners or even like cameras or whatever aren't gonna capture what you put on a traditional.
Because the
medium.
monitor, like a cell phone camera picture especially, is never going to be as nice as when you have the physical thing in your hands, right?
Yeah.
So it's that concept of making someone, or trying to make someone appreciate it as well, like online. So like there's a lot of traditional art out there though that still does and meets those requirements. The very first piece we featured by Cosmic Unicorn, but like that was oil and paints, like that's cheating because like it's super vibrant.
Yeah.
But like colored pencils is a hard one, but there's still some really popular artists out there like who do a lot of colored pencil stuff.
Agamemnon
Agamemnon is one.
Agamemnon,
It's
yeah.
a really big one. And then there's some watercolor artists like Wizard
of
Art.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I think there is also a niche for a lot of traditional art, and there you will find that there's a lot of people out there who are looking for that kind of stuff because digitally it's very popular, so you don't get to see traditional.
We also just featured an artist, I can't remember her name. This is really bad. But because if you have a traditional piece, like viewing that piece kind of depends on the surroundings and the lighting and everything like that.
Sure.
But a digital piece, you just look at it on your monitor. So I guess like the way that you capture it is the way that it's going to look for everyone. So maybe changing the lighting when you actually capture it. Like if you're capturing it by a camera, it might be better than a scanner because you can adjust the light, put some like soft lighting on it and stuff like that. So.
Okay, so
Thank you.
thank you very much for
Thank
your
you.
question.
The final answer is Photoshop's your friend.
So I thought Photoshop wasn't my friend, Bern. So we're gonna do one more question,
Yeah.
and then we're gonna do the camera thing for Joel.
Yeah.
Everyone else who's in line, again, feel free to, and this goes for everybody. We're gonna be hanging out outside this hall, so if you want to come say hi, get stuff signed, or just ask us questions, art questions, all you guys in line, feel free to come to us afterwards, and we'd be happy to answer every single one of you, no matter how many questions you have or how many times you want to touch Bern's face.
Please don't touch my face.
Do
I'm going to put this up on the screen now.
I'll put you in twice in the raffle. All right. So we're going to answer your question.
All right.
And then, yeah.
My name is Michael, or Sorok is my pen name. I was wondering, like, what's your thoughts on artists that like completely block like critique, like they may have gotten toxicity in the past and on their side of their DA or
People who turn off like comments on their
like
work.
comments and critique. They don't want critique at all.
It's a dual-edged sword. Like on one side, the internet sucks, and sometimes people suck, and sometimes they're mean, and people get undeserved ill attention. But on the other hand, there's like a more stuck-up, mean side of me that it's like sometimes people are too sensitive. And so there's a lot of artists out there where someone's like, gives them a bad critique or gives them the wrong critique that we were talking about earlier, and they take that really, really personally. And it's hard not to. It's really hard not to. But sometimes like the thickest skin you can possibly put out is sometimes your best friend on the internet because the internet's sometimes not the greatest place.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the way that I feel about it is like I can understand why people do it. I don't necessarily agree with it because I feel like you're blocking out a lot of positivity as well. Then again, I haven't been in the shoes of someone who has faced a huge amount of negativity, so it would be weird of me to make any sort of judgment on that matter.
Yeah, same. So
thank you so much.
Just as a note, these are the places that you can find us online. We are on, let's see, DeviantArt,
everywhere.
Picardo, YouTube, Gmail, Facebook, Twitter, and Tumblr.
All of those places.
So if you want to go find all of our episodes, they're on YouTube. We do a stream on Picardo every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time of our latest episode.
All right, so do you want to use the big camera for the Joel thing? Or am I gonna...
No, we're still recording. So
all right, so what we're going to do, can I pick up this microphone? I'm going to pick up. I probably can't, can I? I'm just going to leave it here.
Yeah, you do that.
All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to stand up and I'm going to go 3, 2, 1, go. And on go, we're all going to say, "We love you, Joel." Okay, so we got that?
I just start the video.
We love you, Joel.
Ooh.
Oh, look at that. You're a champ. Thanks.
Thank you.
Well, so
Fun fact, you remind me of a friend of mine, Nezza Goring. You look kind of like him. Right? We love you, Nez.
That's our Leo,
And you,
by the
staff.
way.
We love you too.
So again, if this camera ever focuses, oh my God, I'm sorry to whoever's panel is after ours.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm gonna say 3, 2, 1, go, and then we're gonna say "We love you, Joel" as loud as possible. All right. 3, 2, 1, go.
We love you, Joel.
Woo!
Miss you,
Awesome.
buddy.
Thank you
Thanks,
guys so
everybody.
much for coming out for our panel.
Yeah,
We're
thank
gonna
you,
be
everyone.
Right out
This is a
there.
lot of fun.
So if you have any questions, feel free to ask us. If you want us to sign anything or any junk like that, pictures, all that stuff, you can find us right outside. We're going to be out in just a minute after we do that.
Yep.
Thank you so much for coming out to the panel, guys.
Thank you, everyone.